Hello again, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Woodpeckers Deep Dive. My name's Jeff Ferris, and today we're not starting out in my shop. We're upstairs in our home, taking a look at a project that I just recently finished. A few weeks ago, just about the time that we were getting ready to release the new Precision Taper Guide, the new edition of Fine Woodworking magazine came out, and Christian Bexfort, a gentleman that I've admired for a long time, had an article on a ship-inspired wall shelf. Well, when I looked at Christian's shelf, I didn't see ships. I saw airplanes. And my father-in-law spent a very, very long career at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And these are models from projects that he worked on. They've been collecting dust for a long time. I decided to get them on display, and I built this shelf, which is basically an upside-down version of Christian's. So let's go down to the shop and we'll take a look at how I put this shelf together using the new Precision Taper Jig. So now we're back in more familiar surroundings down in my shop, and I've got the project started. I did all the grunt work off the air. We have everything machined, and I have dados cut so that we can slide the shelves together. Now, the reason why I stopped at this point is I want to point out the first time that I did this, I got real excited about cutting the tapers, and I cut the tapers before I did some of the final joinery processes. And that got me in trouble because once you get the taper on there, doing anything else is kind of tough. So before we move ahead with this, I want to put some keyhole hanging slots in the spine of the shelf. And that's what we're going to do next. So we're going to take our spine, put it in the vise and lock it up. This is a tool that we introduced a couple of months ago. It's been really handy in the shop. And one of the features that I really enjoy using are these centering pins. I want to drill a couple of holes in this for the pilot for my keyhole router bit. And the centering pins are going to make sure that I get right in the center of the board without doing anything special at all. I just have to put one pin on each side, rotate it. I'm going to bring that as close as I can up to that spine slot for the other board, and then we'll drill our hole. And we'll do the same thing on the other end. Line it up, get it close. Make sure the pins are indexed on each side of the board. And drill two perfectly centered holes. So now, after I have my pilot holes drilled, I'm just going to take my router and cut that keyhole slot. So most of the videos that we've done and the demonstrations that we've done on the taper jig have all been around doing tapered legs. And when you do a tapered leg, you're working down in a range of, like 1/2 degree to 2 degrees. Anything beyond that, and the taper gets too abrupt too fast. But when we start working with panel tapers, now you are going out to this wider range of 10 to 15 degrees. That's what I'm going to put on the shelves. And when we're doing wider projects, you really don't need the sacrificial base on there. It's easier to just work with the material straight on the table saw and the taper jig just setting up the angle. So I'm going to take these nuts loose and take off the sacrificial plate. So the wing shelves are tapered at 15 degrees. So we're going to slide this out, and I'm going to engage the teeth at 15 degrees. There we go. When I get that engaged, I'm going to lock the knob here, and then this clamping bar, make sure everything is still in line, and lock that. Now if this happens to tighten up in the way, it's a ratcheting knob, so you can just pick it up and move it and get it out of the way. So the taper on our shelves is going to take off this corner, and we want that to start a 1/2 inch from the center line. I've got this one already laid out with my 1/2 inch on either side of the center line. Now we'll do that to the other shelf. I have the center line set up. I'm going to drop a center scale on there and put the 0 right on the center line, and then I can go 1/2 inch this way and a 1/2 inch this way. So now, just so that I can see what I'm doing here, I'm going to strike that line in a couple of inches. The taper is going to go this way, and we're going to take off a 15-degree angle. So the first thing that we want to do is set the position of the rib fence up so that we start at the correct point. So I'm going to kind of, with one hand, I'm going to hold the rib fence and the taper jig together. With this hand, I'm going to hold the board into the taper jig. Then we're going to slide up and forward until we get to the point where the tooth of the saw blade is just barely missing that pencil line. That's our starting point. Now, since we're not using our clamps as clamps, we can reposition them and make them handier to use as handles. So I'm going to put this one on the back side against the fence. Now I can use that to push instead of having to try and grab the webs. I sure wish I had a rip flip with a micro adjuster. There we go. So for the vertical part, it's a straight taper starting right at the edge, going down here of 10 degrees. So we'll reset now for 10 degrees. Just double check. Here's my bottom, there's my back, bottom, back. Now we'll set up our position for the cut, starting right at the edge. Now the other angle on here is 20 degrees. That's much easier to do with the miter gauge than it is with a taper jig. So we've got our miter gauge set up here. I've got my start point marked, and we're ready to make this cut. Now I'm just going to clean up the edges, the little bit of burn that we got from the table saw. Blade's a little bit dull. We'll just go in and clean that up with a hand plane. Now I'm going to put a chamfer on the edge so it looks like this wing can actually fly. Okay, let's see how this comes together. Start out with the smaller shelf on the bottom. Feels like it's going to be okay. There we go. A little sanding, gluing up, finish, and we'll be ready to hang it up. Hey folks, I hope you enjoyed today's look at our new Precision Taper Jig. It's nice to know that tapers aren't just for table legs. If you enjoyed the show today, be sure and give us a thumbs up. If you haven't already, subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell. That way you'll know about every one of our new videos right when they come out. And if you're interested in the taper jig, take a look down below. There's a link that'll take you straight to the ordering page. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time on Deep Dive.